So if you ever watch a David Attenborough kind of thing, if you see a gazelle that's just had a near miss, they'll stop and they'll shake everything off. And
wow.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. It expels and expends all of that nervous tension in their bodies, and we can do the same thing.
Right. So, I like that. Shake it off. Bit of Taylor Swift going on in here.
Taylor Swift.
Hey there, and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind. About 2 years ago, I was speaking at the Speakers Showcase at the DSA Australia Speakers Showcase Conference, and I met an amazing individual who inspired me to be a better version of who I am today. This amazing individual is Tammi Kirkness. Now, Tammi is not only a speaker at conferences, but she's also a life coach and the founder of VisionScope Coaching. Tammi gets to work all over the globe teaching people how to deal with anxiety. She helps people understand when they're experiencing it and how to identify ways that they can go about overcoming it. The amazing thing about Tammi is not only has she taken the information that she has that she's used to inspire people globally, but she also turned it into a beautiful book, which is one of my very favorites that sits on my bookshelf. She's also got an incredible new release coming, and we're going to talk about that during the podcast today. All of this aside, Tammi is an absolute inspiration. She's just had her first daughter, Ruby, and she's taken the time out of her busy schedule as a new mum and a business owner to speak to us about the implications that anxiety can have on us in our everyday and how we can go about being a better version of ourselves and cope in those difficult situations that I know so many of us are dealing with every day right now. So I can't wait to share this episode with you. I know that for so many, this in itself will be game-changing. I can't wait to share with you her new book and what she's going to be doing in the future. So jump on in, listen into this episode. I know you're going to love it as much as I did, and enjoy. Hey, everybody, and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. Today, I am very excited to introduce the beautiful, brand new, yummy mummy, Tammi Kirkness. Welcome on in, Tammi.
Hey, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm really excited about this conversation because we've just been chatting away. And one of the really awesome things is I've had the pleasure of getting to know you bit by bit, just in running into each other on the speaking circuit over the last few years. And I love hearing about your history and your journey. And Tammi, you're a life coach. You're also an author. Did I get it right that you are now a best-selling author?
I am. It's very exciting. It's internationally best-selling. I am still pinching myself. It's amazing.
That's awesome. I love it. We're going to talk about the book. I'm not going to reveal it just yet because I was just saying this is one of my absolute favorite books on my bookshelf. So we're going to talk about it in a moment. But you're also a brand spanking new mum of little baby Ruby, who's now 6 months old.
6 months old today.
Wow. Okay. So tell us a little bit, for those of you that have, so those of our listeners that have no idea who Tammi is, tell us a little bit about Tammi.
So I run a business called VisionScope Coaching, and I am a life coach and wellness consultant. So what that looks like in an everyday picture is I do one-on-one coaching predominantly for women who want to make an impact on their own lives, their community, and the world at large.
Yep.
I also speak on the conference circuits about all things related to wellness and becoming the very best version of ourselves. And as you just mentioned, I have a book out in the world of anxiety. So I speak quite frequently around the concepts of mental wellness and acknowledging our anxiety and being able to use it as a bit of a superpower.
Wow. Okay. So I'm excited to hear about this today because I think this is such an important topic right now. I think I'm going to learn a lot from this chat, but I just, and I think I've got so many questions, but tell me what led you first of all to life coaching and doing what you're doing. How did that all come about and why are you sitting where you are today?
I always had a bit of an insatiable appetite for figuring out how to do things a little bit better, which is a double-edged sword. For anybody who has anxiety understands, it can be an amazing tool in the toolkit to, excel at work and in life, but it can also lead us down a bit of a perfectionistic path. But it led me to study psychology and business, and I used that interesting combination to move into the corporate sector. So I did everything in the human resources realm. I did training and development, executive coaching, recruitment, all of those things. And I was a bit of a corporate warrior, always had a suit on and high heels. It's kind of fun, I must say. And I loved it until I didn't, And I'm sorry, I just saw right outside I've got a delivery coming in. I'm going to ignore that. So I worked in the corporate world, and then I used that as a platform to figure out how to best help people. And I studied over in the south of India and under a whole bunch of monks to become a yoga teacher. And I'm a meditation teacher through that as well. And
my goodness.
Eventually I combined all of these rather disparate bits and pieces together to be able to help people become the very best version of themselves. And along the way, I did all of those, unfortunately, very traditional things that you see in corporate, of burning out, of being the last person there in the office, of always saying yes to all of the projects and then not having enough time to rest and rejuvenate. And I want to see other people continue to do that and go down the spiral that I went down, which led me to feeling very fatigued, very anxious, very overwhelmed, and was no longer something that helped me, and it didn't feel good anymore. So when I did a bunch of things to help me heal and to learn to thrive, I wanted to help other people avoid all of the ick in the middle that I went through.
Yep. Wow. Okay. So we're opening a massive can of worms here, because I'm like, right, I've got all these questions for you about this. I totally recognize that, and I think a lot of our listeners will too, that feeling of, saying yes all the time and overloading the plate and not taking the time to rejuvenate, and then not realizing how bad it's got until you're right in the thick of it and you actually have to deal with it. So I'd love to know a little bit about that. I want to hear about your book in a moment, but let's just sit there for a little sec. If someone right now is in that, if they're listening to this and they're going, oh, I totally get that. That's where I'm at. I'm feeling burnt out, exhausted. I know a lot of people are at the moment because of the world that we're currently in. People haven't been able to have that time to rest and revive in the way they might have previously been able to do. What number one, how would people recognize that they're either getting there or are there at a place that's not healthy? And number two, what's the piece of advice you would give to somebody that's in that stage and wants to know what's the first thing I can do to get myself out of it?
I think it's worth saying that everybody gets stressed and anxious at different times, but it's when it tips over into the edge of interfering with your day-to-day, and it's a big spectrum. On the lower end of the spectrum, it can look like being grumpier with whoever you live with. If you live with housemates or a partner or you've got kids, it's being grumpier with them. It's when you walk through a door frame, your hip accidentally grazes the side of the door frame because you've lost a little bit of balance.
Yeah.
It's losing your train of thought when usually you wouldn't. It's feeling a little bit tense and tight in your tummy. Your shoulders are up around your ears. It's feeling a little bit out of sorts. And for most of us, we don't recognize it slowly coming in, which is a shame.
Yeah.
And it's often when we've seen 3 or 4 or 5 of those indicators that we start to recognize that something's a little bit skewy.
Yep.
And then on that spectrum, when we look much further down, it's where it's impacting so heavily on your day that, you know, it's impacting your ability to parent or to go to the grocery store or to do online shopping or to show up at work. And we don't want it to get to that point. So we want to recognize it in the middle. And if we have recognized that something's gone a little bit off center in some way, that's where we want to do what's referred to as a pattern interrupt, which is we're on a regular pattern. We can see that we're going down the stressed, sad, anxious pathway. Okay, we need to cut off that pattern. How are we going to do it? There are so many ways to do it. One of the easiest ways is to make a change in your physiology. And if you think about a gazelle or a lion on the savannah and they've just had a really scary thing, something's going to eat them or they're going to fall off a cliff or something, they don't go and have a big chat about it because they can't in the moment. They stand there and they shake themselves. They shake it off, literally. And
really?
So if you ever watch a David Attenborough kind of thing, if you see a gazelle that's just had a near miss, they'll stop and they'll shake everything off. And
wow.
I know, it's amazing. It expels and expends all of that tension in their bodies, and we can do the same thing.
Right. So, I like that. Shake it off. Bit of Taylor Swift going on in here.
Taylor Swift. So easiest thing, start from your toes and go all the way up to your head. So you'd literally stand up, shake your right leg, shake your left leg, shake your right arm, shake your left arm, give your torso a bit of a wiggle, flick your fingers a few times, jiggle your head side to side a few times. And it really helps expel all of that nervous, tight, clenching energy that you've kind of been holding within your muscles and in your cellular memory. So you want to flick all of that off. And bonus, if you want to make it a bit fun, you can do it to some music. And if you have kids, you can get them to do it too, and they find it a little bit fun too.
I do feel like that is where Taylor Swift comes in, just saying. Okay, that's really cool. That is something that people can do, and I love that. So let's you shake it off. You recognize, okay, I've bumped into 4 door frames this week and I'm grumpy when I walk in the door, and my husband probably deserves it half the time, but the other half maybe not. And so you're thinking, right, I need to, shake it off, get rid of some of that nervous energy. You do that. What from there? Because I know for a lot of people right now, it's a matter of, how do I, and we've done a few episodes in this recently, actually, is that question of how do I take care of me? What can I do for myself right now? Because sometimes, and this might just be me, but I feel like when you're right in the thick of the challenge, sometimes, you get asked, what do you want? What do you need? And you can't answer that question. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need. I don't know if anyone else feels that. Is that just me? But
that is literally how the brain works. If you're feeling like you're in a threatened state, the emotional part of the brain takes over, and that's not the part of the brain that is rational. So
no, it's not.
Very clever, together business owner that is Sam, she can say, when I'm stressed, it really helps me to do some yoga and drink a glass of water and look up at the sky. But if you're in the midst of that,
you're not thinking those things.
Speaking.
No, it's actually really funny because you can get so much amazing advice from some incredible people, and you think to yourself, I'll never again wonder what to do when I'm in one of those situations. And when you get to those situations, you go, damn, I knew I got some great advice recently and I cannot for the life of me remember what it was. I remember Greg said to me actually a couple of weeks ago, we had to cancel our family holiday. We were meant to go to the Gold Coast. And I just had my hopes were set on this trip with the kids. And I had to kind of be together for the kids. I didn't want them to see my disappointment because I knew that it would, they would feed off that. And I didn't want them to be any more disappointed than what they would already be as it was. But Greg just looked at me and he goes, okay, I know that, to be fair, I was supposed to run my first ever half marathon. So I'd been training for this for a year. And so he was anticipating a total meltdown at my end. And he looked at me and he just went, all right, I want you to stay calm. Here I am going, I'm calm. I'm okay. It's all right. He said, I want you to stay calm, but I need to know, what do you need right now? How do I make you feel better? What do you need? And to be honest, I couldn't have answered the question. I knew I probably needed something, but I didn't know what it was. And I felt like, the deer in headlights. I don't know what I need. And he said, you need to do something for you because I don't want you to feel, the full disappointment of what, it's okay to feel disappointed and upset and stressed and anxious, but I want you to do something for you right now. What would you like to do for you? And I just couldn't think of anything I wanted to do. There was just like nothing. So I was like, I need some advice. At that point, it was like that Sam needed to know what can Sam do right now? What's a step Sam can take to look after Sam in a very stressful time? So I'm sure you've got some techniques people can use in those moments, aside from your book, which we'll get to.
I mean, I think everybody's experienced that. It's like if you're starving and somebody says, what do you want to get for dinner? And you think, I don't know. Food. I'd like some food. It's the same sort of thing, if you're feeling disappointed, unhappy, disheartened, upset in some way, you need something and you don't always know what you need. The easiest thing is always to return to the breath. And this is a very yoga teacher thing to say. And I know that sometimes you go, I know I've got to breathe. But if we actually start to oxygenate our bodies more, it kicks the brain out of the sympathetic nervous system and kicks it into the parasympathetic nervous system. And that allows us to actually come back into a state of calm and decision making. And then that allows us to be able to make a decision on what is next best for us. So if we can do some breathing, have you ever done box breathing?
I was just about to say, we had actually Oscar Trimboli came in and did an episode with us a while ago, and he told us all about box breathing, the 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4, and repeat. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And would you believe that is what I've been trying to remind myself to do over the last few weeks? It's actually quite amazing the difference it makes just in, you're right, in your physiology, in the way that you show up when you stop and breathe.
Oh, it's amazing. So let's keep box breathing to the side. That can be Oscar's thing for now. Another thing that you can do is go out and get grounded with nature. So take your shoes off.
Yeah.
Go outside, walk on some grass.
Yeah.
And if you happen to live in a densely populated area, if you can find some raw concrete, that'll do the trick as well. So,
really?
Because it still connects with that beautiful earth energy that's beneath our feet. So it's fine. I am very lucky to live near a beach.
Yeah.
So if I can get my feet on some sand, great. Any kind of bit of nature that you can get around, go pop your shoes off, get grounded. It makes a massive, massive difference. And another visualization that I often tend to add to that as well is to close my eyes and then visualize the base of my spine, and that there is a great big tree root going all the way down from the base of my spine down into the earth. And then breathing that energy up and down. And it has this beautiful calmative effect of, the world is bigger than just me. It's okay. I can breathe. And now I can take another step forward to make a better decision than I would have about 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And There is something really beautiful about taking your shoes off and being able to get into nature. And I know it can be hard. I mean, let's face it, I live in Tasmania, so it's freezing cold right now. And it doesn't seem appealing to go and take your shoes off and go for a walk. But we actually, have you ever been floundering, Tammy?
No.
Okay, me either. But we went camping a few weeks ago and someone said, Sam, would you like to come floundering? And this is where you go late at night. Oh, well, after it's dark. So, it feels late at night. You go with a torch into the ocean. You walk into the water at the beach and you shine this torch and you've got a spear and you can see the flounder because it's under the sand and you can see it with this special torch and you spear it and you put it into your bucket. It's got to be done at night. And so we went out. And I thought, this is nuts. Like, it was about 2 degrees. Like I said, Tasmania, it was about 2 degrees. And at first I thought this is horrible because we're walking around with bare feet on, we're getting wet. But after about 2 minutes, I just had this overwhelming sense of peace and calm. And, your body gets used to it. But it was just so nice to have feet on ground and even better in the ocean, even though it was freezing cold. So yeah, it was just a really good reminder that even in winter, sometimes, you got to kind of do what you don't want to do and get out there and take your shoes off and go for a bit of a walk in nature. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. And I think it's worth reminding everybody that we all kind of know this stuff. Sometimes we just need a tap on the shoulder to go, oh, yes, what a good idea to do fresh air, take my shoes off. Yes, we'll do that.
Yeah. Okay, so Tammi, let's talk a little bit about your book. Now, I'm just going to show this little baby because we're going to talk about this. But just as we do, I would really like to hear from you about why you wrote this, because you've got a beautiful introduction in here. I reread it a couple of days ago, and to be fair, like, I was in tears reading your little story because I feel like it hit so close to home, and I think it will for so many of our listeners as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the motivation behind this?
Yeah, so the book that Sam's referring to is called The Panic Button Book, for anybody listening along. And as I alluded to before, I always had a bit of a high achieving, perfectionistic, win at all costs kind of personality. And it wasn't until I was, I think I was 20 and I was working in an office in Melbourne, and I was working as a recruitment consultant there. And then one day, sitting at my desk, out of the blue, I clutched my chest and I thought I was having a heart attack. And I was really embarrassed by this for some reason. I very casually picked up my handbag and went downstairs, got in a cab and went to the emergency room, and they hooked me up to all the ECG monitors and all of that sort of thing. And cut a long story short, a doctor came back about four hours later and said, good news is that your heart is fine. The bad news is I think you had a panic attack. Has this happened before? And oh gosh, you could have just knocked me over with a feather. I never had thought that was going to be me. And the irony was that I have done a degree in psychology. And so that was the sort of first moment of realizing that anxiety is a part of my life. And then it wasn't until around about 10 years later that I was living with my boyfriend at the time, now husband, and I started to feel that same sense of panic wash through me, and it was a really full-on panic attack. And no, not everybody has a panic attack when they have anxiety, but for those of you who have, oh my gosh, I get it. And we were in our lounge room, and all of a sudden it just gradually started seeping over me, and I started getting tighter and tighter, and my shoulders were stuck. I was stuck. I remember sitting on a bar stool at our kitchen bench, and I just was so trapped in my own body. And my husband came up and said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I was bawling my eyes out and just paralyzed. I was absolutely paralyzed. My hands were trapped. It was, from the outside, I looked a wreck. I was tears streaming down my face, snotty and just dripping. And he kept saying, "What can I do? What's going on? Are you okay? What's happening?" And it was awful because he was so worried. And for people who have had a panic attack, everybody experiences them slightly differently. But for me, once I realized I was having a panic attack, there's a weird degree of calm that can wash through you of, oh, this is what's happening. I can't move. If somebody asked me to stand up, I couldn't. And it's a bit of an out-of-body experience as well. And I just wished in that moment that another version of me, the really capable, confident wellness specialist was standing next to me to go, Tammi, no big deal. I know what's going on. You got that anxiety thing happening again, and let's run through what actually sparked this off. Were you comparing yourself to someone again? Did you give yourself really high expectations and you didn't quite meet them? Did somebody disappoint you because they didn't reach your high expectations? Have you not had enough water? And just really go through this whole list until we got to the thing. And then I could go, oh, yeah, that's it. And help me breathe my way through it.
Yeah.
Put a new blanket on me. I just wished that person, that other alternate version of me was standing there. And it would have given my boyfriend at the time some respite as well, and given him some support. And eventually, I was able to come out of it. And I mean, it's a horrible experience. And then the next day, it feels like you've run a marathon because your body has gone through such trauma, holding that much fear in your body that your muscles literally ache. And so about a week later, I was thinking, oh my goodness, that cannot be how I live my life. That just doesn't work for me. If this happens again, what am I going to do? And so I got out a little cheapy notebook and a pen, and I wrote myself a whole bunch of questions that I could talk my way through if it happened again. And there were questions like, are you comparing yourself to someone else? No. And then you go to the next question. Yes. Tammi, just do these 3 things.
Yep.
And a whole bunch of questions like that. And I used it myself for a year.
Yep.
And it was super helpful. And then after a while, I thought, I think other people might like this too.
Yes, I will.
For other people. And so I attempted to publish it, had a bunch of rejections, yada, yada, yada. It's now a published book. And that's how it came about.
That's awesome. And I love this so much because, sometimes when you're in those moments, we've already touched on this, you don't know what you need, you don't know what you want, and you don't want to overcomplicate the situation either, because sometimes it can, I know, like hand up, I absolutely suffer from anxiety. I haven't had a panic attack, but I think anyone who is, a high performer, a perfectionist, I feel like entrepreneurs, particularly female entrepreneurs, tend to load themselves up with so much stuff that it's fairly natural that at some point it's something that many of them experience. And I know that when you get into those moments, it's like you want to simplify things. And what I really love about this so much is just how simple it is. Like, I'm just looking at it now. Okay, first question, are your muscles feeling tense? And you've just got this yes or no, yes, and you've got a little process you go through, which is just that physiology thing, and no, turn to the next page. And it's just so simple. It's so beautiful and so simple. And so yeah, I really appreciate you sharing this, because for me, this is like you just need some things to be really simple at those points. You don't want to pick up a great big book that you've got to read through and get to the end to figure out what on earth to do next.
Yeah. I have lots and lots of books on anxiety, and most of them are 70,000 words. And while they are wonderful and full of insight and have helped me in other ways, I tell you what, if I'm feeling a bit, I don't want to read 5 chapters.
Yeah. Are you feeling tender, vulnerable, or sensitive right now? I feel like that's like a yes 90% of the time. But it's just so simple and easy. And can I just say as well, oh my goodness, are you feeling unprepared for something? The thing that I really love, can I just say, is, and like massive plug here, this is just one of the most beautiful books we've got sitting on our bookshelf. We've talked about our reading list. We've got some gorgeous books over there that our team use that we have got in our reading list as well, for the accelerated reading list, which we'll talk about in a moment. But like, I just love this so much. And it's like all textured and nice. I just said to you before, like, I just love picking it up and playing with it, because it's just such a gorgeous little book.
Oh, I love it too. I feel very grateful for the amazing design work that the publishers did.
And to be fair, it's handbag size. So, if you need something like quick access, you got it in your handbag. How easy is that? You've got a panic button on hand. I love it.
I go to my bedside table.
On the bedside table, there you go. Well, I guess it's about as well, where do you need something? Maybe you need 3 or 4 copies. Like in my world, really, it probably makes sense. Have it on the bedside table, have another one in my handbag, have one on my desk at work, give Greg one. Get a few copies. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can get a few copies. But just because I've got some more questions for you, but before we get to those, you do have some very exciting news though, because now it has a baby brother or sister.
Yes, it does. It's very exciting. The Panic Button book for kids has just been released, which is such a thrill.
Such amazingly perfect timing, because being a mum of, now, I was just saying this to you before, 3 teenagers and 1 not yet teenager. I can so see the value in this for kids right now, given the world that we're in at the moment. What inspired you to do a kids version?
Popular demand. I never thought I'd say that, and I feel a little bit, I'm not quite sure, but as the original adults book came out, parent after parent kept saying, oh, do you have one for kids? My 8-year-old needs that, or my 12-year-old is struggling with this or this. So, and it's something that's very close to my heart, because one of the jobs that I used to do was I worked as a clinician in Notting Hill in London, where I worked with predominantly kids who had learning difficulties. So everything from autism through to dyslexia. And when somebody has a learning difficulty, the comorbidity rate of having something else going on in the mental landscape is really high. And so a lot of the kids that I worked with had worried little minds. And so I had a lot of exposure to working with kids who worried more than the average kid. And so this is such a privilege to be able to move into the homes of primary school aged kids to be able to help them breathe a little bit easier and worry a little bit less.
Yeah. I think it's just so beautiful, Tammi. And I, like, as a mum, I know that you're only a new mum, but I can say as a more experienced mum that's been around the block a few times with my kids, I am so excited for this, and I'm going to be getting a copy for my 8-year-old. But my question to you is, for what age do you recommend which book? If you've got teenage kids, do you recommend the panic button? What age bracket is for your new kids version?
The kids version is officially 7 to 11 years old. Yep. However, all of the scenarios in there, realistically, we can use as adults as well. So if you're thinking sort of up to your 13-year-olds, I'd go the kids version, and then 14 and up, I'd go the adults version.
Yeah. I love that. And I just like I just want to quickly share a little bit out of here, because there's all of these scenarios that I can totally recognize. And I'm sure that for so many of our listeners, they will too. But something like, are you worrying about something that's outside of your control? If it's no, obviously move on to the next page. But if it's yes, it's really, I love that it's just such simple, easy steps. So get out a pen and paper. In 2 bullet point lists, write down what you can and can't control in this situation. For the list of what you can't control, visualize putting it into a long vacuum tube that sucks it up and deposits everything directly into the sky and out of your hands. I love that visualization, and it's so powerful. And for the list of what you can control, do one tiny thing that boosts it, and then discard the piece of paper. I just think that's so simple and beautiful. So yeah, I'm going to be getting copies of these for all of my kids. I was actually telling you just before we came in, you've got your beautiful Ruby, who's 6 months old today. So happy 6-month birthday to her. And I asked you how you were doing, and you were like, oh, it's amazing. It's so good. I love being a mum. And I think it's just so awesome. And I explained to you that I feel like I rang my mum a few weeks ago and just went, Mum, I'm really mad at you right now. Because when I had my kids, when I fell pregnant, you told me, oh, you're going to be tired. You got to prepare yourself for sleepless nights, for, kids that are up all night, for teething, for tantrums. I said, you never at any point ever told me that I had to prepare for the fact that one day they will become teenagers. And the thing that you don't anticipate with children is that one day they're going to experience all of the challenges of life that you yourself have not yet figured out how to handle. And you've got to guide them through that. And that in itself is quite a stressful situation to be in, because you want them to do better than what you've done. And you don't want them to make the same mistakes or have the same emotions. And yet you haven't figured it out. So I kind of love that there's like a little instruction book right here in my hand now. Have this, children. Read this and then come back and see me and we'll talk it through. But no, I think it's fantastic.
It's a very big privilege to be able to come into the stickier parts of people's lives. And, little kids, they get worried about their math homework, or teenagers are worried about how their friends perceive them. And then as adults, we're worried about, am I running this business right? Have I done everything that I'm meant to have done? Something
I've forgotten that I can't remember.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lifelong journey as far as managing our own mental landscape and doing our best to be authentic as far as how we're currently feeling and how we can utilize that to become a better version of ourselves.
Yep. I love that. Now, I want to just quickly, I've got some fun questions for you in a moment, but just before we get to those, I met you at the Speakers Showcase for the DSA maybe 2 years ago now, and we were both about to present on stage. Now, one thing that, I've been really open and honest about with our listeners is, although, presenting and keynote speaking is something that I do as it's what I do for a living now, it's not that I don't get nervous and anxious and stressed in the lead up to those things. And the reason I bring this up is because one of the things that we really encourage people to do is to show up on camera, do Facebook Lives, do videos, connect with your audience. And that can bring on in itself a lot of anxiety, nervousness, stress. Now, you obviously have come, you're somebody who's suffered from anxiety and panic attacks, and you're still able to get up and present. And I'm going to hazard a guess here that doesn't come without its own little set of nerves and anxieties. So I'd love to hear, what are your coping strategies if it were to jump in front of a camera like one of our listeners and do a little Facebook Live, or if they did have to present on a stage, or even doing an in-home party or event and have to speak in front of 3 people. What advice can you give them?
Yeah, I do a lot of speaking, and something that may be a bit of a curveball and what a lot of people don't necessarily guess is that speaking is my calm place.
Right.
So for the majority of people, doing public speaking, being in front of the camera is so anxiety inducing. And I'll go through some techniques for that in a moment. But I actually thought that maybe I was one of the fewer people that felt the world go quiet. Everything goes calm, and I can breathe when I'm doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I recently heard Osher Ginsberg speaking, and he is exactly the same. He has clinical anxiety and OCD, and
amazing story too, if you ever get a chance to listen
amazing
to him.
story. Very good book as well. And he talks about when the red light goes on the camera and he goes live, that's where he can finally breathe again. And I really identify with that. However, so when I'm doing the thing, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling in flow. Everything makes sense. The universe is flowing through me. Everything's just working. But beforehand, it's not always the case. And I can get quite worked up and nervous beforehand. And what do I do with that? I do heaps of prep. So, it's very practical. I do lots of preparation for whatever it is that I'm about to do. I've done lots of workshops which very closely mimic the home party scenario. Mm-hmm. I do heaps of prep. I know who's going to be in that room. I know what they care about. I know what their pain points are. I understand the area.
Getting to know,
really get to know them so I can actually help them out. If I can't help them out, what's the point of even showing up? So I do heaps of prep when it comes to that. Another thing I do is I make really strong intentions before I do anything. So if I'm going to speak to a group of 3 people, or I'm going to speak to an auditorium of hundreds, I'm still doing the exact same process beforehand, which is to, call on the highest part of myself. And for those who have a spiritual-based practice, they might do something similar to this, which is to, call on the knowledge around them and call on the wisdom around them to say, please flow through me to help me do the best possible job that I can do to be able to serve these people in this room for exactly what it is that they need, not what I think that they need.
Yes.
Whatever it is that they actually need, please let me be the conduit for that to flow through me and flow out to them. And once I've done that, and you can do that in so many different ways, it actually takes the pressure off, because I think, I'm just the tube that all of that good stuff is going through. I'm the tap that water is flowing through. So I just have to make sure that I'm feeling confident enough and caring enough and grounded enough to be able to hold the energy of those people and that message. And if I do all of those things, that's my job. That's all I have to do. And by being able to do that and surrender that it's my job to do all of this stuff, and actually I'm just the conduit for the messaging and the information that those people need at this point. Boy, oh boy, does it take the pressure off.
Yeah.
So that is a massive thing. And, you can do your other little tidbits of doing your power posing with your hands on your hips and your shoulders behind you. You can make sure you're hydrated. You can practice in front of the mirror, do your affirmations, do all of those sort of things. But for me, doing that invocation and setting that intention beforehand really helps cut the nerves before I can deliver whatever that message is going to be.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And really powerful as well to sort of take that pressure off, because really it is what it is at the end of the day. So a few little fun questions I've got for you now, just as we wrap up. The first thing I want to know is your favorite book for our accelerator book list.
I am such a bookworm.
I love it.
I list so many, but one of my favorites is The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown.
Oh, good one. Yes.
I don't know if have you already got this on your bookshelf?
No, Brené Brown, I've got two of her other books. One of them I'm currently reading, and one of our team members is reading, and I love Brené Brown. I actually really enjoy reading her more than I enjoy listening to her, but I know different people have got different opinions on that. But I find she's really great with the storytelling side of things.
Oh, amazing. Yes. If anybody is identifying with a lot of what I've said, that's another great book for you.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. Fantastic. And so, Tammi, if you could have one superpower, what would that be?
I had to think about this, and I think the superpower that I would have is to take away people's pain and be able to take away their pain emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, because if you can do that, then that person can just do anything. They can do the thing that they were put here to do. And I think that is one of the most magical things to watch, is somebody just in their element, eyes big, sparkling, big heart, shoulders back. There's something so magical and special and tangible and beautiful about watching them do that thing. And if I could just suck out the bits that are in the way, that would be.
It's so beautiful hearing you say that. But, as you're saying it, I'm thinking that's what you do though. That's what you do. That's what you do for a living. And it's so beautiful that you get to show up every day and help people with that. So I think it's awesome that you want that as your superpower. I already think it is your superpower.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
So, favorite quote, Tammi?
I brought it along. It's one by Howard Thurman.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who come alive."
Oh, I love it. So good. All tingles. It's good. And last question, but certainly not least, if you could go back in time and if you could say one thing to your past self, what would that be?
I don't know if my past self would listen, but if she was going to listen.
That wasn't part of the question for a good reason.
I would tell her to take the pressure off, play more, have more fun. Don't worry so much about getting good grades and trying so hard. Stop the addiction to achievement. Breathe more.
Good way of putting it. Yeah, so good. Well, look, I've really loved chatting with you today, Tammi. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you for your book. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and it's clearly a piece of your heart that you're putting out there to help with the healing. And I just think that's amazing. So thank you in so many ways. And thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much. I've had such a nice time.
Such a pleasure. Now we're going to pop the link in the show notes, because when this episode comes out, your brand new Panic Button for Kids will be out. So we'll put the link in the show notes for people to grab a copy of either book. So I think you've got it there. Do you want to hold it up so those watching can see? Yay, how cool. And I've got you've up. So grab yourself a copy. I've given this as gifts to people. I love it because aside from the fact that it's so incredibly practical, it's actually just really beautiful. So thank you for sharing. And if anyone wants to reach out, Tammi, if they want to get to know a little bit more about what you do, how can they reach out to you? How can they find out a little bit more about Tammi Kirkness?
So I'm on Instagram at Tammi Kirkness, Tammi with an I. And my website is VisionScopeCoaching.com, and you can find all sorts of things about my books on there. I have an e-course for those with high functioning anxiety. I have meditations on there and links for one-on-one coaching as well.
Sensational. We'll put all of those in the show notes. But thank you again so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and I appreciate your heart that you shared with us all. So thank you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thanks, Sam.
Cool. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in again this week. We look forward to seeing you on the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast again next week. But for now, take care and bye for now, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.